is the 2024 Honda Pilot Elite the best midsize three-row SUV? Hi everybody, it's Tom from Vehicle Visionary. I hope you're having a great day. Today I'm at Holmes Honda to give you the information to answer that question. And this shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody, but for 2024 there are no changes to the Pilot, and that's because we just saw a full redesign for the 2023 model year. A little larger, a little more space, a little tiny bit more horsepower under the hood, but overall a very solid vehicle. And so let's take a look at what you can expect to find here. And we'll start here on the front end. And a little hard to see because of how I have everything positioned, but it's either a little shadow and some light shining on the vehicle, or we're gonna have a lot of sun in the background. I think you can tell which one is best based on that description. So here we can see that you have the LED lighting basically everywhere you look. LED daytime running lights. We have the LED fog lights down there on the lower portion of the bumper. You'll also find the active air curtains. You can see the daylight through the front end right there, so that's going to help to improve gas mileage. And obsidian blue is the exterior color, and something we don't see a lot necessarily, but on some of these Honda models you can get something other than a black interior, and as you can see that is the case here with the gray interior. And if you're looking for an all-wheel drive Pilot, well, the Elite is definitely something to consider because that's the only way you can buy it is all-wheel drive. Obviously, Honda Sensing is here. That's going to include adaptive cruise control, collision mitigation braking, lane keeping assist, road departure mitigation, and traffic jam assist. And I told you that you have all-wheel drive, and you're saying, well, it's all-wheel drive. What size are the tires? Maybe you've seen the numbers on the side of the tires and you thought, what exactly does that mean? So here's what we have. 255 is going to be the width. The number 50 will represent the sidewall size, and 20 will be the size of the rim. And I know a lot of you like to know what the remote looks like. So there's what you have. And one of the primary questions people ask about, well, there's the answer right there. Does it have remote start? Yes, it does. And quite a bit to talk about here with the side view mirrors. As you can see, they are folded in. They're power folding, they're power adjustable, they're heated, and they have the turn signal indicators built in. Also, you're gonna have your blind spot information system or blind spot monitoring. And by the way, that remote is a proximity key with the walkaway feature. You'll also find the roof rails here so you can get the crossbars and help to increase your cargo capacity capabilities. And we'll finish things off here with a nice look with the taillights. You have the exhaust finishers down here. Obviously, a power hands-free lift gate. The instructions are right here. And if you want to tow, this all-wheel drive model will tow up to 5,000 pounds. I heard you. I know you're saying, Tom, show us those power folding side view mirrors in action. There's actually two ways to make that happen. So the first is going to be when you lock the vehicle. So I hit the lock button on the remote. That's going to take care of that. Now there is one other way, but one good thing that you need to know about, it's a good time to show you this. So I actually need to start the Pilot for this to work. Now, what we're going to have is the button right here on the door panel. So you have the control to choose which mirror you are adjusting with this control, but when you push this button to the left, the mirrors fold in. So maybe you're in a situation when you're driving into a tight parking spot or whatever the situation is, and you need to fold those mirrors in before you finish your parking job. That's how you do it. And now we'll get to the engine. Under the hood is the 3.5 liter dual overhead cam Honda V6. Now there's only a 5 horsepower increase here, but the engine does seem to be more responsive than the VTEC. At least that's been my personal experience. So we jump up to 285 horsepower. The torque stays the same at 262 and mated to a 10-speed automatic transmission. And let's talk about those all important, especially right now with gas prices being higher than they really need to be. MPGs, we're looking at 19 city, 25 highway, 4.8 gallons of gas per every 100 miles driven, and 21 miles per gallon combined. And one thing that you often don't hear in these car review videos or vehicle review videos is the size of the gas tank. If you're curious, this 24 Honda Pilot has an 18.5 gallon gas tank. Let's talk about functionality with this power lift gate. Now it is hands-free. You can use the kick feature right there. Sometimes I like to just kind of swipe my foot across, so that way it's just a little bit easier. You can do either one. Now, one thing I want to cover before we get into the interior, if you have this power lift gate open and you say to yourself it's too high or too low, how do you fix that? Very easy. You're just going to pull it down here like this, and you can see hold to set height right here. So you're going to hold the button and listen for the beeps. And just so you can see that this does indeed work, I am going to go ahead and let that close, and then we'll open it one more time. And I'll even show you what I was talking about. You don't have to use the kick feature. You can swipe your foot like that, whichever one works best for you. Either one will do the job, and now you can see that the power lift gate is at the height where I set it. I'll reset that real fast. And we'll talk about cargo capacity, 18.6 up to 86.5 up to 87 cubic feet. And one thing that you'll find here is the space underneath the floor. Really a lot of potential opportunity here, including being able to stow that middle seat in the middle row right there. And I'll show you how to do that in just a little bit, or how it fits in here. And you can actually close the floor down with that in there, so that's a good thing. And this floor is dual-sided. That's helpful. So you have the carpeted side. You also have the plastic side right here. And that way you actually can flip that over. It's very easy to do. You just pull it out and just turn it over and put it back in place. No big deal. Now I want to show you something that is very helpful here. So here's what I'm going to do. A lot of the time, notice where that strap went right there? Here's why it's important to make sure when you do this that you make sure to take the strap. There's a little piece of Velcro. I almost didn't do that correctly, but there's a little piece of Velcro. You can put that on the Velcro. So here's the thing. When I go to raise the seats back up, unless I have really long arms and I can reach that, which I can, well, it's a lot easier to just come right here and have it in place. So just a little trick for you. And one more thing that I want to show you is the fact that you have a spare tire. No tire repair kit with these Pilots. And if you want to see everything laid flat as far as the second and third row of seating, here's what everything looks like maximized. But that's not all. There's a little more to show you back here. You're going to have the 12-volt power outlet. There's a little bit of space right here for whatever you want to put there. And then there's this button right here. That's called the walk-away feature. Why would you want to or need to use that? Well, let's just say that you're like most people. You get a whole bunch of groceries and you're trying to take in all 20 bags in one trip. 10 in each hand, right? Okay, so here's the deal. I'm going to push that button. You hear the beep. Now notice nothing's happening right now. So I gather up all of the bags, and you could use the kick feature underneath the bumper right there that I showed you earlier. Or you could just walk away like this. And look at what happens. That is the walk away feature. So maybe you don't want to use the kick feature when you're carrying all those grocery bags. Push that button, and as long as you stand underneath this area back here and you're gathering up the grocery bags or whatever you have, that door isn't going to close until you walk away. And we'll take a look into the middle row seating area. We're going to start with a nice comfortable armrest, plenty of room up there. It is comfortable, the upper and the lower door bins, and also the cup holders right here built in. There's also a privacy shade right here that can be put in place on both doors. And as I mentioned earlier, you can remove that middle row seat. And unlike in my last video where I forgot to show this, notice that the floor is down completely flat. If you open that up, there is that seat. It fits perfectly. And there is the panoramic sunroof. If you're a fan of the panoramic sunroofs, well, then you're gonna like the Honda Pilot, because if that's what you want, that's what you get. And one more thing before we take a look at the third row that I wanted to show you in the second row. You can move these seats back and forth. And for those who are saying, Tom, how do you take this seat out? Well, the first thing you're going to do is pull on this release right here. And then you're going to go right down here. There's another release. You pull on that, and I can't do this one-handed, but this tilts forward and you just lift it up out of place. I'm guessing that seat weighs about 40 pounds. Not too bad. I think the average person can handle that. And to gain access to the third row, we're going to push the button right there. And even though I did this on the driver's side, you can do the exact same thing over there on the passenger side. So I know some people ask about that, and so I like to make sure that I cover it. And we'll pull this seat all the way back. And even with this seat all the way back, I have room right here. Now, it would be a little bit easier without this seat here to get a little more leg room, kind of stretch out just a little bit. Or, depending on who's sitting in the middle row, well, there is quite a bit of space here, but I do feel maybe a little bit cramped, but not too bad. I could be back here for a while with the seats in either position, but like I say, it's easier with the middle seat out because then that gives me a little bit more room to stretch out. Not a big deal either way. It's very roomy back here. And everybody has their own air conditioning vent, as you can see right there, as well as a USB port and a couple of cup holders. And if for some reason whoever's in the middle row jumps out and forgets to let out whoever's in the back seat, well, you have another button right here on the rear of the seats to take care of that problem. I like to make sure I cover everything possible. So if somebody said, well, Tom, if I wanted to avoid having a lot of sunlight come in through that panoramic sunroof when it's really hot outside, what are my options? You have the power shade right here. That's a good thing. And storage capacity back here increases with not only your seat pocket right here on both sides, also a place to put the cell phone. There's plenty of room there. And then we're going to have the controls for the heated outboard seats and the rear air conditioning controls. So 3 zones of climate. Have our dual air conditioning vents right there. The power outlet right here, as well as a couple of USB options. And while we're not finished showing you what all is here, some of you might be saying, okay, Tom, I'm seeing a lot of great features here. What's it going to cost me? At Holmes Honda, $53,855. And here with the front passenger door, another nice large armrest, the upper and the lower door bins. One thing that's different here, you have the heated middle row seats. You have heated and ventilated power seats here in the front. So a lot of good options where that is concerned. And you have this area right here, perfect for cell phones. For those who still read books that they're holding in their hand when you take a break, I guess you could put it in there potentially. And you also have plenty of space within the glove box, quite a bit of room there. And then we'll have a couple more connectivity options, USB and a 12 volt, as well as your wireless charging pad right there. A little bit of additional space here to the right of that area. The push button shifter, well, some people like it and some people don't, but that's what your option is here. That's the only option, by the way. And dual cup holders, plenty of space for your bottles and cups. And then your drive mode selector, you can turn the auto stop start feature, or what's called idle stop, off right here. Hill start assist, power parking brake, and brake hold mode. And a very large lid for the center console, nice and wide, plenty of room. And then plenty of room within as well. And one thing I do want to cover real quick, how about the height? Well, depending on where you set the seats, that can work really well as an armrest. And then up here on the upper console, the map lights. You have the conversation mirror that can be used to let your rear seat passengers know that you're watching them, at least when you're sitting still, not when you're driving now, let's be wise. And then the sunglass holder. So it's a multitasker in a couple of different ways. And here's the control for managing that power shade I told you about earlier. Over here on the left, you can open the sunroof. It tilts open and it slides open. And I'll reach over here and start the engine. There's your push button start. No big surprises there. And you pretty much know what's on the driver's side door panel, but let me just cover the rest of it anyway. You have your controls for your windows, door locks, and 2 settings for seat memory. That's only here on the driver's side. I think when you're over $50,000, you should have that on the passenger side as well. Not in this case. Tell me what you think about that. Now, we also have the control for the power lift gate right there. You can turn traction control on or off. You can use the lever right here. You can drop that down to adjust the tilt and telescopically adjustable steering wheel. And here's a little hint. Make sure you put that back in place before you take off down the road. And if you don't do that, you'll quickly figure out why I said you should. This is a heated steering wheel, by the way. There's the button to turn that on and off. Steering wheel mounted controls, pretty easy to figure out what is what where that's concerned, and your shifter paddles on the steering wheel. And right here is going to be a multitasker. We have a couple of multitaskers on the steering column here. So you can control the headlights and taillights right there, the fog lights, and there's another function right here. When you do this and this, some of you know what that is and some of you don't, and you might say, well, Tom, how do you know that? Because I drive around you. That's how I know. And here's something interesting. Just something I thought you might like to see that maybe you haven't noticed before if you own one of these Pilots. But when you turn the headlights on, that's probably not that big of a surprise to see that you have the illumination right down here with the likeness of your Pilot. Well, watch this. When I step on the brake lights come on. Kind of a neat little feature there. I call that added value from Honda. Just something that's interesting that happens. You may or may not have noticed that before. And over here on the right-hand side of the steering wheel, another multitasker, because this is the control for the front wipers, the front window wipers, the rear window wipers, and there's a couple more features here. So here's one. We're going to push the button right here. What happens when we do? Well, here on the 9-inch infotainment screen comes the multiple camera views. Now, I want to show you something very interesting here. You don't have to have your front view camera up for this to happen. It happens every time you run the windshield washer fluid, but here's what happens. The front camera washer will go ahead and spray windshield washer fluid across the front camera. That way you keep it clean. And maybe you've been off-roading or just out on the trail. Maybe I shouldn't say off-roading, but you can definitely go out on the trail with these Pilots. And the front camera's dirty, or just driving down the road. If you live in an area where there's endless construction, well, that might be helpful to keep the front view camera clean. And there are multiple camera views here, as you can see. You also have that overhead view, which is very helpful in tight parking situations or wherever you may be. Two different views here with the side view mirrors. Quite a bit going on. And obviously things are going to happen when you go into reverse as well. There's your rear view camera. Quite a bit going on here. The 9-inch screen here, you can pair your phone wirelessly, your smartphone. You have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto integration. And while you can use navigation off of your phone if you so desire, you do have built-in navigation here. That's one of the common questions I receive a lot on these vehicles. Do they have built-in navigation? Now you know the answer. For those who maybe haven't had this technology before, it might look a little complicated, but trust me, it's not. Honda has some of the easiest in the industry to use. I can't say that about every single vehicle out there, but with these Pilots and other Hondas, I can definitely say that. And if you need to manage your power tailgate, there's how you do it. It's very easy to figure out what's what here because you have the graphics here as far as your vehicle settings go. General settings, still very easy to use. You can go in here and check things and change things and do whatever you need to do. And the dual zone climate control here in the front, I told you that you have 3 zones of climate, 2 in the front and 1 in the rear. And like I said earlier, there you go. There's the proof of the ventilated seats and the heated seats as well. We don't need those today in Northwest Louisiana, still in the month of November, but it's coming. It's actually happened a couple of weeks ago. And then spring came back. I wish it'd be like this during the summertime. But nice and comfortable outside. But I tell you what, there's a lot going on here with this model. You definitely will receive a lot of features and functionality for the price of this 24 Honda Pilot Elite. And one more thing I wanted to show you. Let's go through our driving modes. And so let's see here. We'll start with normal. And you do have sport up there. Since I already showed that, we'll go ahead and go that direction. So we're going to go from normal down to econ mode. I'll show you the graphics that go with each mode. Snow mode. If you're going to drive in a lot of snow, an all-wheel drive Pilot is going to be very useful. You have trail, like I say, trail is the best thing. In fact, when you get out on the trail, the camera comes up. And that's a good thing, just so you know what's there. But obviously, you know that you can push the button right there to make that happen as well. But we're not finished looking at driving modes. There's also sand, and there's also tow. You're going to have your trailer hitch right there. And so a very, very nice looking instrument cluster, easy to deal with, nice graphics, looks nice and modern. Okay, we're going to get out for our test drive, and I wanted to mention a couple of points, a couple that I forgot to mention earlier, and one thing that might be of use as far as something you may want to know about. First of all, there is a head-up display here. That's a standard feature you're going to have on the Elite trim level. It's nice and bright, easy to read, traffic sign recognition, all that good stuff is going to be there. But something else that I thought about, that I had never tried this before, but I turned on the ventilated seats when I was getting ready to leave for the test drive, and then I had to turn the ignition off and then get back in the vehicle and get on the road. The reason I say that is that when I turned the vehicle back on, the ventilated seat was still on in the same setting where I had it when I turned the ignition off. So if you were curious about that, well, now you know. I didn't answer that earlier in the video. I haven't really talked about that before, but in case you were curious, there is the answer to that particular question. And as far as the overall driving experience with the Pilot, it's comfortable, it gets down the road with no problem. It would be nice to be able to tell you what it does on snow and ice, but I haven't had that chance yet, but I think it would probably do just fine. I know a few years ago we had some snow and ice in the area, and some people took some of the... and get around this car here that doesn't seem to understand that the speed limit's 45 miles an hour. That's CRV right there. I know it'll go 45 because I've driven them before. But anyway, some guys took home, some of the dealership employees took home Ridge lines and probably some of the other models as well. Now, they obviously, at the time, this was in 2020, didn't have this version of the Pilot. But with all-wheel drive, those vehicles did great in the snow and ice. And around here in northwest Louisiana, you wind up with a lot of ice. And they did just fine. From at least what I was told, that wasn't what I had at that particular time, but some of you might even be able to tell us down in the comments here what your experience has been like if you have a 23 or 24 all-wheel drive Pilot, or even front-wheel drive. Front-wheel drive probably not going to do quite as well, but I don't know. Curious to know what kind of feedback you can provide. What about the overall comfort? The ride quality is good, and I find that the seats are nice and comfortable. And that's a good balance, because sometimes you have one, maybe you have the other, but you don't have both. And so they tend to cancel each other out. One cancels the other out, and you end up with a ride quality that's just not much fun, not perfect. But here, on the road surfaces I've driven on, this Pilot seems to handle it just fine. It's comfortable, it's enjoyable to drive, and plenty of room, not only for driver and passengers, but also for your cargo capacity. So that's always a good balance to have. Plenty of room for road trips. There's quite a bit going on here, although I am curious to know about what you think. Maybe there's something you're saying to yourself or want to say to Honda, I wish you had added this, or maybe left something from the previous generation. Tell us down in the comments section what your thoughts are about something that maybe the Pilot should have, or maybe something you'd like to see in the future. Okay, tell me what you think. Is the 2024 Honda Pilot Elite the best mid-size 3-row SUV? Tell me what you think. I'm curious to receive your feedback. I do want to say a special thanks to my friends here at Holmes Honda for loaning me this Pilot for the day. And if you're saying, hey Tom, is it still available? Well, depending on where you or when you watch this video, there's a link down in the description of this video. If you click on the link and this model shows up on your screen, then it's still available. If not, there's probably something else in inventory you can check out. But check that out, see what's going on. If you want to come in and buy it, tell whoever you talk to that Tom from Vehicle Visionary sent you their way. And I also want to say a special thanks to each and every one of you for being kind enough to give me the opportunity to give you a vision for your next vehicle. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button. That helps me out a lot. And make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so just yet. And if you would like to learn about additional vehicles you may wish to consider purchasing or simply learn about, check out the video that's on the screen right now, and I will see you there.